Hi, welcome to the Nick Arsenault podcast. Today I will be talking about my favorite album from my three favorite artists. Um, my music taste is pretty broad. I do like all genres of music. There isn't much music I don't like. And it's everything from classical to jazz to hard rock, oldies, to even hip hop and dance, and all the way to like the most extreme heavy metal that you can possibly imagine. So it's very broad. I just listen to everything. Um, to be honest, though, my preference leans towards things that I listened to when I was younger. So there's not a lot of new music that I'm into. There's some, but I'm more likely to be into newer records from older artists that I used to listen to when I was in high school or in college. That's common, with people that you get a taste of music at a certain point in your life and you kind of stick to it. Um, so that being said, I want to say who my three favorite artists are, and then I'll tell you which album of theirs is my favorite. So my number one favorite artist is Duncan Sheik. If you don't know who he is, he's most well known for the song Barely Breathing. 'Cause I am barely breathing and I can't find the air. That came out in the early 90s, I think, or maybe even, 90 or so. And he is even now still releasing new records. I think his most recent record is Legitimate. But he's had a very prolific career with a whole mess of records that he's released. And then also my other two favorite artists. The second one is the Deftones. So of the new metal era, back in high school, I was listening to a lot of like Korn, Limp Bizkit, and I got into the Deftones, and I may not have listened to them as much then as I did, later on, because they released a lot of records over time that have been very good, and I've gotten into their music. It's a very dynamic band that's evolved over time, and their musicianship has improved, and their maturity of their music writing has improved, and I really enjoy that band. And then my third favorite is a band that isn't from my generation. It's an older group that I got into. I really thought that the cover art was fascinating for one of the records that my dad had for a band called Jethro Tull. And everybody knows who Jethro Tull is. But I want to talk about my favorite album of theirs because it may not be one that you know of unless you're a Jethro Tull fan. So let's talk about Duncan Sheik first. So Duncan Sheik had his self-titled record that came out first with Barely Breathing, and also had She Runs Away. I listened to that record a lot in high school. It's a good record to listen to if you're sad, an emotional teenager. A lot of really moving songs. One of the things I like about those early records, that one and the one that came out after it, is they use orchestra. He has a string quartet or group that does adds strings to his acoustic and singer-songwriter music. So it makes the record very, very compelling and dynamic. So that was his first record. After that, he released a record called Humming, which is a good record. I really enjoy that record. The opening track is good. My favorite track off that record is a song called Varying Degrees of Con Artistry, but it's got A Body Goes Down, and it's a very good record. So I believe the next record he released is the one that I have here as my favorite one. It's called Daylight. What I like about Daylight is that it is probably his most uplifting record. It's got a very good tone to it. Some interesting music throughout. Um, and it's really well produced. The songwriting is top notch. Um, some other notable mentions for records that he's released in college. I was listening a lot to a record called White Limousine. Well, White Limousine is a good record, but it's sad. It's a sad record. I have to admit it's political. I would say it's probably the closest political record that he's released. That was during the war, 9/11, the war, and that's when that record came out, and it was kind of fitting at the time and kind of reflected the emotions that a lot of us were feeling at that time. And then also one of my favorite records of his is when the first time he worked with Steven Sater, and the album is The Wilderness. No, what is it called? It'll come to me. Anyway, so another notable mention too is he continued working with Steven Sater, and he released the musical, which I believe is a Tony Award-winning musical, Spring Awakening, and I've never seen that musical, and I don't really know the full story, but I do like the soundtrack. I mean, one of my favorite songs of all time is the song of Purple Summer, which is from that record, and from that musical. And if you do show choir, or if you're in choir, you may be aware of that song, because it has been making the rounds of being a common song to be sung in a choir or show choir. So anyway, back to Daylight. The whole album is great. It opens with the song Genius, which is a song about, I'm a genius, but, clearly I'm a genius, but, I made this big mistake, and it's a song you can relate to. And it moves into Half Life, which is a great, sad, but beautiful love song. And Start Again. So that song brings you on a journey. On Her Mind is a great song. One of my favorite songs is Such Reveries, which is almost like a lesson in what the word reveries means, because it's a song about this beautiful story. He's riding the ponies in Mexico. The moonlight leaps through the palm tree grove. So wouldn't you know, we're in Mexico. And then the bridge of the song is like, don't listen to me, it's my imagination. So he's basically breaking down the fact that the whole song is all just his stories he made up of this, spending time with his loved one, and these things that never happened, but he just imagined it, and how beautiful these things could be. And it's an awesome song. It's my favorite, I think, off the record. The single is the song that comes after that, On a High. I'm on a high, upbeat, happy. Great song. I love that song. The track after that, Magazines. I like that song, but it's got definitely an interesting story to it. It's about his ex or something like that is posing in one of those magazines, and then it's about that. Good song, but it's a little weird. That one I'm not sure about as much as the rest. Then after that is For You, which I think is one of my favorite songs of his of all. And it's a simple song, simple acoustic, simple lyrics. And it's short. It's a short song, but it's a really pretty song. I think For You. If you want to check out any songs at that record, I would start with For You and Such Reveries. Good Morning is a great song. It's interesting. It's I woke to find the devil by my bed is how it starts, and it's about the devil's conversation with him. And it kind of catches you off guard because it being his third record, it's the first time and maybe one of the only times he swears, says, drops the F-bomb in the bridge. Whoa! That's not like him in his style, but it fits in that particular song. And it's a good and interesting song, but not for kids, right? And then Memento, and then Shine Inside. That is a great way to end the record too. So just overall, a really good record. And there's a secret song too. I forget what it's called, but there is, if you let the last track play, there's one more track, and that is also a good closer to the record too. So Daylight by Duncan Sheik is definitely my favorite record by that artist, and I've listened to every record that he's released. Phantom Moon, that's the name of that record I was trying to think of earlier, by where he first worked with Steven Sater. That record I like because he deliberately made it so there was no electronic instruments. He works with a double bass and strings and piano, and doesn't have any like synthesized parts or sequenced percussion or anything like that. But it's a really sad record. I listened to that one in college, and it's good, but it's sad. Good to listen to if you're feeling sad. One of those good records. So definitely I like his work with Steven Sater. Steven Sater is the poet, and he writes the lyrics. And it was a good exercise for Duncan Sheik to apply his music writing skill to somebody else's lyrics, and it makes it interesting because Steven Sater does say things in a different way than I think Duncan Sheik would if he were to write his own poetry. All right, so let's get into the Deftones. So I've been into the Deftones. I'm still into the Deftones. They're great. Their most recent record, Ohms, is great. Off that record, I particularly like. The funny thing about the Deftones, I don't know what any of the songs are titled because they have nothing to do with the songs. And the other thing I like about the Deftones is that they don't ever really know what the songs mean. They don't have like clear meaning as far as what the lyrics are trying to convey. That's a lot of emotion and things you can infer, but they kind of you can make them your own as far as like what the songs mean. A lot of people complain about the singing style of Chino, which he's flat a lot, but deliberately, like kind of a whiny, flat sound to his singing. But definitely from the first record to from Adrenaline to My Own Summer to then the self-titled and all the records that have come out since, his singing ability has improved, and he's definitely has a wide range of ability as far as like singing and doing this screaming, which sometimes can be weird. Over the years, some of the tracks are a little funky. Definitely, I loved White Pony that came out in college. And RX Queen is probably my favorite track off that record, although I do like Digital Bath, and that's a good record. So, but on to my favorite record by the Deftones. I think of all the records that they've released, my favorite is a record called No Yokan. And it's my favorite for a few reasons. One, it's probably the best produced record of all of their whole catalog. The mixing and the mastering of it is top notch. It's the best, I think, as far as the tone and sound. But also too, the music writing. It's a really good record from beginning to end. It comes in hard with the song Swerve City. And then I don't know. I don't have to go over every track like I did with the first record that I was talking about with Duncan Sheik, but just touch on some of my favorites. Poltergeist is in a weird time signature, but it's hard. It hits hard in the verse. Um, it comes in with like a really percussive rhythm that kicks in with the guitar and bass, and then it's got the chorus do 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 that is just really strong. It hits really hard, and it really gets you going. It's a really good track. So Poltergeist is definitely one of my favorites. Um, it has a really nice, softer sounding song with a graphic nature. I really like that song. It's a good. It brings a dynamic. Makes the record dynamic. It goes up and down, and that's a good calming song that brings you into one of their best songs, I think, of all, which is a song called Tempest. I wouldn't say Tempest is 100% perfect, but it is definitely very compelling, especially how the song starts. It really starts really low, and the lyrics come in soft, and then it builds up, in a way that I think is unique of all the songs they've written. It is one that kind of stands out as being a song that doesn't fit in with the rest of the songs they've written, but it also uniquely compelling that it's one of my favorites. So Tempest. And then it comes out of that with Gauze and Rosemary are great songs. And then is a nice bridge that goes into the song called Goon Squad. And that's like old school Deftones. That kind of, it starts off soft in the intro, which isn't like old school Deftones, but then it hits do 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 with a really repetitive but energizing melody and rhythm that really gets you going. So that's one of my favorite tracks too. The last track, "What Happened to You," seems a little out of place. It's really light but rhythmic. And it's a song that you'll be like, ugh, I don't know if that song fits. I'm not sure about it. But then you find yourself humming the bass line. So it's a song that you might end up finding as catchy, but it isn't as strong as the rest of the record. But it's a good song. So yeah, No Yokan, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. A lot of Deftones fans agree that that is one of their best. So yeah, Deftones, No Yokan. So then finally, Jethro Tull. Now, unlike the Deftones and unlike Duncan Sheik, I have not listened to every single Jethro Tull album from front to back. So I have a different perspective as far as like comparing it to other records that they have. I haven't listened to Stormwatch or Songs from the Wood or Crest of the Knave. Maybe parts of them, and there's certain songs I like. My knowledge of their music is more like from their anniversary box set that I listened to that had and their greatest hits and playlists like that. So I know quite a bit of their music, but there's a lot of songs I don't even know what records they're from. So it's my knowledge of Jethro Tull in general is different in that way, that I haven't spent serious time listening to every record. Obviously, I love the album Aqualung, and that album I've listened to quite a bit from front to back, and that's a great album. And the Thick as a Brick, it's really just one song. So, but I listened to that album a bunch of times as well. I've been listening to them lately as well because they have a new record that came out, I think, this year, Rock Flute, which is based on Nordic mythology, and it's really cool. But it's definitely more like older Jethro Tull, in that my wife's like, "What are you listening to?" Is it sounds like madrigal music? I was like, "Well, okay, a lot of the record does kind of sound like that, but if you're a Jethro Tull fan, that's you appreciate that. You don't really dislike it." But as far as their favorite record, it's a record that came out in '95, And I think it's a really well produced record. It's called Roots to Branches. And it doesn't really feel like older Jethro Tull, but in a way it is Jethro Tull though in its sound. It has a lot of like Middle Eastern influence to the record, which I think is what I find appealing about it. Those the minor scales and stuff, and the flute work of the record make it unique. So the title track, Roots to Branches, is the opening track, which has a cool meaning to it. It's like the idea of like, the messages that are the roots are changed over time, and they become the branches of the, like this scriptures and so forth, and the writings of the previous generations, how they change by each person creating a new meaning, or adapting it to their own personal feelings. The whole record is full of some great tracks. I mean, there's nothing on that record I would say is a bad track. Rare and Precious Chain is cool. Out of the Noise has a weird chorus, but it'll grow on you. It's great. This Free Will is a cool song. Valley, it starts off really low. It's like, all the happy people that live in the valley, but they hate those people down the valley. It's got the dark side of like this group of people that are so happy living in harmony with nature, but how are they really in harmony if they feel have this hatred of this other group of people living nearby. So a good song. Dangerous Veils, I think, is one of my favorite songs of theirs. It is an interesting song. Beside Myself is great. Wounded, Old, and Treacherous is another song that has a weird chorus, but it's a really cool song. And then the last tracks, Last Forever, is it's a really pretty song. And Stuck in the August Rain is another really pretty song that kind of tapers off to some really nice tracks at the end. And then the last track, another Harry's Bar, grew on me over time. So I would think at the time that I first listened to that record, I kind of felt like, and I still kind of feel like that song doesn't really fit with the rest of the record. It kind of seems like it doesn't fit with the theme of the rest of the record, but who's to say there is a theme, but over time, that song has become one of my favorite songs off that record. It's got it tells a story about the bar, like a bar owner who's passed on, and the guy is there with his dog, and they're talking about Harry, the bar owner, and and talking about the olden times when he was there and making drinks and talking to guests and paint, and Ian Anderson has a great way of using just a few words to really paint a picture. And listening to that song, you can see yourself sitting there at that bar and imagining this, like closing your eyes and like picturing all the patrons in the bar, and opening your eyes and seeing it's just all quiet and empty, and like it really is a good story and a good song and a good way to end the record too. That's my favorite Jethro Tull record. So my three favorite artists: Duncan, Sheik, the Deftones, and Jethro Tull. And my favorite records by them: Daylight by Duncan, Sheik, No Yokan by Deftones, and Roots to Branches by Jethro Tull. And the reason why I wanted to share this, because either you're a fan of these artists and you might think it's interesting to hear about these records and in my opinion and point of view, but also too, if you haven't heard them, give them a try or listen to a track or two, see what you think. I would say that all three of these artists are kind of an acquired taste. Definitely nothing that jumps out at you that like you may grab onto right away. I mean, Deftones, for especially, is like you either love them or hate them, and kind of like whiskey, the whiskey of the new metal, you know. But I think that their sound has evolved over time, and they've just gotten better and better. But definitely their pinnacle, I think, is this record. Um, Duncan Sheik, you know, most people haven't really heard of any of him since Barely Breathing, but he's still out there continuing to make music, and all of his records I think are great. And is a good singer songwriter if you're into want something softer, but his voice is unique. It definitely, when you hear his singing, it's him. And of course Jethro Tull. And I kind of feel like I'm the only guy who listens to Jethro Tull, but there's definitely a lot of people out there who are Jethro Tull fans. That they have a really big following, and Ian Anderson is still out there making music and still doing his thing. Though it is a shame that he's losing his voice. He's definitely in the new album not singing like he did in the past. He did quite a bit of vocal tricks and things with his voice that he can't do now, but he's still an amazing flute player, and one of the very few bands that you're like, oh, I love that flute part. What other bands out there have flute at all, let alone has flute as the lead instrument. But that just it creates the melodies that really catchy. Like every song has got like the melodic line that when you're listening to it, you're like, you follow that melodic line. That's what brings you in to Jethro Tull's music. All right. So, hey, thanks again for listening, and see you next time.